Dan Kingerski of Pittsburgh Hockey Now. It's an episode of Pittsburgh Postgame, and a joyful one as the Penguins win 4-3 in a shootout on Long Island. Sidney Crosby scores the shootout game winner, and a relief, I think, is the best way to put it. After things looked like they were going to go sideways there on the Penguins late, they had the game tied 2-2. They fall 3-2 behind. Evgeni Malkin tied the game late. Sidney Crosby sends them to an overtime winner. Dan Kingerski, is that like the roller coaster ride of that last 8 minutes of this game, where it looked like the Penguins were playing a pretty solid game, even though they were tied, and then, oh no, rookie P.O. Joseph makes a rookie mistake. They go down. It looks pretty bleak. And then the guy we've all been waiting for to come out of his shell does it in such a big way to send the Penguins to overtime there in Evgeni Malkin.
What's your question?
Just take me through the roller coaster ride for those guys there at the end of that game.
I do have to jump over to the Kris Letang press conference. I'm sure some folks will have some questions for him, but I don't think it was much of a roller coaster. I thought this was pretty much on par from what we've seen a lot of this season with the Pittsburgh Penguins. Very good 5-on-5 spurts. A lot of puck control on the edges. Tonight, I thought they did a very good job of getting between the dots, especially in the first 30 minutes, not so much in the second 30 minutes, of getting shots between the dots. Mike Matheson, Alan, I thought had a very strong game. He did the simple thing. He got the puck on the net, which scrambled the Islanders' defense. It forced them to go retrieve the puck, which pulls them out of position. That allows Kapanen, Crosby, Rust, and those guys to do the things that they do down below the dots and behind the goal line. So the Penguins had some tactical advantages doing a lot of that. But their defense is still spotty. Yeah, P.O. made a couple of rookie mistakes. I forgive him for getting beat by Matthew Barzal because there's a long line
of the first guy.
Yeah. Someday Barzal might be a decent hockey player. He's pretty good. There's a long line of defensemen who have had that toast served to them by Barzal. So I'm forgiving of that. CC was pretty good. Matheson, I thought, was pretty good. And so you take a lot of positives, but there's still the cake is still batter in the bowl right now. They're still mixing it, putting together. They still haven't brought it all together to do enough to win a game, or dare they have a 2-goal lead at some point this season.
Yeah, I thought this game felt like so many of their games, and that they were just kind of chasing a lot. They had a lot of possession, and they did. I agree. I thought they got more of those in between the circle shots, like you were talking about. They made the Islanders defensemen turn more, but I never felt like they were poised to run away with this game at any point either. And part of that is that they have not been able to take advantage of opportunities on the power play. That was something, you get 4 days off. I know it was talked about a lot that they got lots of time to work on the power play, and they don't get substantial opportunities tonight, but also did not get a power play goal. Did you see anything different in the execution on that power play that might give you some hope in that regard?
No. I described it a little bit on Twitter. The Penguins worked exhaustively, just extensively, on a very simple top of the zone cycle, where Kris Letang kind of walks the puck along the blue line to the center, chips it back to either Malkin or Crosby on the wall, who kind of comes to the top of the blue line to get the puck, and then Crosby or Malkin, whoever, whichever way they go, is supposed to kind of come to the middle, charge the circles to put pressure on the PK, because Letang pulls one of the defenders out of position, and then so that should create a ton of space there at the top of the zone to the top of the circle for Crosby and Malkin. Letang, I swear to you, Alan, I saw Letang's head go, oh, when he got the puck on the power play and literally started, kind of doing the moonwalk backwards. The PK followed. He chipped it to Crosby. Crosby charged to the circle and didn't shoot it. Tried to pass it across the zone to Malkin. The pass doesn't connect. The Penguins chased possession, and that was pretty much the end of the power play because they never again reestablished the umbrella. So more Keystone Cops, more Laurel and Hardy, more Abbott and Costello power play, more Washington Generals than Harlem Globetrotter. I almost have to think, Alan, at some point Todd Reirden has to begin to bear some blame for this. He's trying to take advantage of the Penguins' skill by making them a ballet at the top of the zone or on this power play. And that's just not what a successful power play typically does. Even the Penguins' talent, they're not going to be that pretty ballet at the top of the zone. You've just got to work the puck, maybe have a little bit of movement and blast away, break down the PK, then the pretty stuff will follow. And they're trying pretty before they break it down.
Well, they did get a man advantage goal as they scored with the extra attacker. It's not quite a power play, but it does work sort of like a power play. And I joked on Twitter, I said, well, I guess the way to get them to shoot the puck is just to have there be no time left in the game. Like you can't pass anymore if there's only 3 seconds left. So just shoot and they'll be fine. They just got to put like 12 up on the clock.
You have DeSmith or Jarry to start banging their stick at $1.30. Yeah. Get a few shots.
Get a little bit of juice behind him. And Evgeni Malkin.
First questions from Seth Rohrabaugh.
Hey, I got to run, Alan. I'll be right back in about 5 minutes.
Sounds good.
Casey, please, Casey.
What we know that he can do, right? That we've been waiting to see him do for so long this season, and that he has not. He's not looked like the player that Evgeni Malkin has been over these years, and not a great game for him if you take into account the entirety of the 60 minutes there tonight. But I thought he showed something in that third period. There was a sequence that Bob Airy highlighted on the broadcast where he kind of got into it with Matt Martin a little bit. And, Evgeni Malkin is a fiery, kind of emotional guy. I think that was a big mistake by the Islanders. When that guy is not playing very well, you just leave him alone, right? You let him do whatever he wants because his head's not in the game or he's checked out or whatever. I mean, look, I'm not willing to sit here and say that Evgeni Malkin is just bad at this point in his career. Like, he's not that old. The drop-off is too steep. This can't be his full ability right now. He's got to be able to play better than he has been playing. And they kind of light a fire under him a little bit there. Martin gets into his face, a little pushing and shoving. And then a couple minutes later, Evgeni Malkin scores the game-tying goal. Now, I'm not ready to say that he's back and that, it's all well and good in Penguins land. But, man, what a positive sight. If you were waiting for a sign of some life from Evgeni Malkin, you got one tonight. He scores the game-tying goal way at the end of the game, and in a huge situation. I'm going to talk more when Dan gets back about a couple things I want to ask him about, one of which was the defense. They got a couple of important bodies back in this game that they did not have before this little 4-game break gets significantly more healthy. They also got Zach Aston-Reese back for the first time this season after his surgery. He scored an important goal in this one, and I thought looked really good playing on a line with Brandon Tanev, and I thought they were a big factor in this game. So I'm going to pick Dan's brain about those two things. We'll leave those for when he returns from the Penguins postgame, plus whatever he's got from the locker room with Kris Letang. I do want to get to some questions that you might have. So if you've got one, you're in the YouTube chat, fire away. I'll get to those in just a minute. And I've got one from Twitter. Zach Smith, Smitty, says DeSmith is yet to allow a shootout goal this season. Is there something technically that he's doing that makes him look so comfortable in those situations? I think comfortable is I don't think there's any goalie that's like comfortable in those situations, but I think what Casey DeSmith is doing is playing with really good sound technique. He is making shooters beat him. He is being aggressive and going out and challenging shooters and getting out to the top of the crease. And I think what you saw from the Islanders is they had some room in some places against him tonight, but they weren't able to execute because he was putting the pressure on the shooter. He was moving out. He was taking their shot away and said, give me your best move. Let's see what you got. Can you beat me? And when you make a shooter one-dimensional and you know he's going to have to make a move, he's going to have to do something a little fancy, you're putting the pressure on him. And sometimes they're not able to do it. Stick handling's tough. The ice isn't good at the end of the game. The ice is rarely good in the Island ever anyway. And so I think you saw some skilled guys kind of look a little flustered against Casey DeSmith. He's not, glove save, stick save. He's not out there jumping around for his life. He's just coming out to the top of his crease, putting pressure on guys, and then being in sound fundamental position, not give them an easy goal if they do make a move. And so, look, at some point, somebody's going to go out there and pull off a Forsberg and make them look stupid. But until that happens, I think he's got a lot of confidence in his game plan, and it's working for him. And then, these things are cyclical. People will figure out that he's coming out that far, and they'll try to make him pay, make a move with some speed, and he won't be able to get back to his post quick enough or something like that. But I think his game plan has been really good. He's not the most technically skilled goaltender. I think that's a tough area of the game for him, but I think he's got a really good strategy right now, and I think that's why it's working for him. I would say that generally, if you're looking for like an elite shootout goaltender, you want somebody with that super quick reflexes, and he's not necessarily that guy. He's more of a sound positional type. And he's really getting it done, I think, with a strong, aggressive strategy, and someone's yet to make him pay for it. I'll take the over on 0. I think he'll give up 1 eventually this year, especially if the Penguins keep playing 3 out of 4 games in overtime as they play yet another one that goes to the shootout here. But I do think that he's got some confidence in general, and his play has been a little bit better than Tristan Jarry as they've gone on. Neither goaltender, I don't think, could be said to be playing particularly well on the whole. I think, in fact, the goaltending as a whole has been one of the Penguins' issues. But if you look at the last couple of games for Casey DeSmith, I think you got a lot of positives there. He gave up 4 goals in that game against the Rangers, but it's an overtime goal, the last one. 3 goals and the other are on 30 shots. He was good in the other game against the Rangers as well that he played. Gave up only 2 goals in what became a loss. And so, they're not getting good enough goaltending on the whole. I thought Smith was good, very good tonight. There was a couple of opportunities, I thought, for the Islanders to make that a 3-2 game before they did, and then to make it a 4-2 game after they did make it 3-2. And he really held the fort, while I thought the Penguins had their worst 20 minutes of the game in the third period, and then also did very well in the shootout. So I have a lot of confidence in Casey DeSmith in general. I don't think either goaltender has played up to his talent level at any point this year. So maybe that confidence from the shootout bleeds over, and the Penguins will get better goaltending going forward. But I do think that Casey DeSmith has been obviously very good in the shootout, but I think he's shown some signs tonight of becoming the goaltender more in line with what we thought he could be. Dan Kingerski back from the Penguins locker room, and what have you got from us from the dear Kris Letang?
Well, Letang is not usually one to say a lot in good times. You get the best stuff from Kris in the bad times, actually. He mentioned a couple things they liked on the power play. He thought they actually did move the puck pretty well, but he fully conceded that the breakouts were a bit sloppy, that they didn't attack the zone nearly enough. Can you hear the Penguins actually in the background, Alan? Because they're about to start Mike Sullivan here in a couple minutes too. I don't want that sound to bleed over. But
Hi, Coach.
The
first questions from Matt
attack enough, and so
Mike, after having
these
guys practice shooting from added tripods at practice over the last week, how satisfying was it to see?
Okay, I've left the Penguins for you, Alan.
And our wonderful viewers here at Pittsburgh Sports Live, of course.
Not a hell with them. I left them for you.
Couple things I wanted to say for when we got to you. The last time we talked and the last time the Penguins played, very different looking team on the ice. You mentioned Mike Matheson, you mentioned Kris Letang. They get some reinforcements to this team. Zach Aston-Reese as well. I felt like that made a big difference in this game. You talked about Matheson, and you thought he played pretty well. Zach Aston-Reese, I thought, obviously scores the goal, but I thought he looked very good. How big of an impact does having him back mean for this team?
It really depends on which Zach Aston-Reese the Penguins get. I thought tonight he had something to prove, right? That Mike Sullivan publicly, as much as Mike Sullivan challenged Aston-Reese to be that heavy, big-shouldered guy who takes the puck in the corner and goes to the net. The Penguins have been waiting for that 15, 20 goal guy now for a couple of years. They thought he was there in 2018-19. He was on forgive me, my numbers are a little fuzzy, somewhere about a 12 points in 16 game streak back in 18-19. He decides to add fighting to his repertoire. He beats the snot out of Colton Sevier, but then breaks his hand in the fall after the fight and was out 6 weeks or something. And just, last year, I talked to him about it a couple of times. And the short story is he liked being in that fourth line role with Teddy and Tanev. He just focused on defense. He didn't even think about offense so much last year. His job in his mind was to shut the other team down. Statistically, he did an extraordinary job at that, but he made himself a one-dimensional player in that regard. So I think Sullivan's public challenge to him was well calculated. It's like, okay, we know you can play defense. Now do the other things we know you are capable of. So he beats Andy Green. It doesn't quite beat him back to the puck, but for intents and purposes, he does. Wins that puck battle against Green, takes it right to the net, stuffs it in. Aston-Reese can do a lot of that, Alan. And if he does, that Penguins third line all of a sudden becomes much different than it's been. It suddenly stops being a shutdown line and starts being a line that can hurt you as well. And that changes the flavor of the Penguins a great deal.
Yeah, I think especially against a team like the Islanders, who have given the Penguins a lot of trouble over the years, that really thrives on their speed and their counterattack ability. The last thing the Islanders want to do is just skate in circles in their defensive zone. And I think that line really did that a lot tonight, not just on that goal, but they put the pucks in the corners and they went and got them. And I think Brandon Tanev has been playing well all year, but that is when you're talking about, putting lines together and you have a guy like Aston-Reese, I don't think the Penguins have another one of those that you could put with a Brandon Tanev and a Teddy Bluger to make that line. That's something that hasn't been an option for Mike Sullivan until Aston-Reese returned. And so I think that's really a huge positive step for the team if they can keep that line together and working well. And Tanev keeps playing the two-way game he's been playing so far. They can score some goals. I don't think that was a fluke tonight. So the other thing, I guess, is the defense. This was a unit that was just under siege a week and a half ago with injuries. You touched on Matheson and Ceci a little bit. They make a couple of mistakes. I don't think it was a masterpiece defensive performance. Is there enough, though, to make you think that it was mostly just the getting these bodies back, that was the biggest thing this defense needed?
No, I don't think so, because the body that they have, P.O. Joseph, I think, has made such a huge difference. They almost had to. I mean, this was almost call it serendipity or whatever you'd like, that Joseph is now in the lineup. I think it's a matter of Matheson finding his game. And if he's the player he was in the first 2 years of his career, well, then the trade doesn't look too bad. But if he's the player that was in Florida the last couple of years, and the guy who started this year with the Penguins, who was a gaff machine, that's going to be a problem. And Cody Ceci, let's talk about him, Alan. I know a lot of the Penguins Twitterverse and the high priests were circled around him and ready to sink his ship this summer or whenever he did sign. I guess he signed almost on the eve of the season, whenever it was. But I think he's played very well and getting better. He's taking the lessons he learned last year. And just real briefly, he tried to be too offensive in Toronto last year. He tried to be part of that showboat offense in Toronto. He kind of fell flat with it. And he even admitted that a couple of times. But he's taking what he learned, like the part that he could do or that he felt comfortable doing, the skating and the pinching. And he's incorporating that with what he did with Erik Karlsson back in Ottawa, covering his own zone. So he's adding a bit of the two-way game to an already solid defensive game. And I think he's actually a pretty good defenseman right now. I would not be surprised to see the Penguins call his agent and ask him to stick around a little while longer.
Yeah, and I think the ability of him just being a veteran guy, when you lose so many people and you have a guy like P.O. Joseph, you know, he's going to make mistakes. And I think he's shown the talent, the ability to be able to be given the opportunity to make some of those mistakes. But if you're looking for a way, I think, to shelter him a little bit, I think putting him with a guy like Ceci could do that. And you know, obviously they've got to get some bodies back still yet. They still have, some pretty significant injuries over there, and guys like Brian Dumoulin, their number 2 defenseman still out. But I think they can, Pettersson as well. I think they can utilize Ceci as a guy that's steady. He doesn't have to be the guy that he was trying to be in Toronto here to be a great success. They just need him to be, a steady Eddie guy, and
whenever they get beyond steady Eddie is icing on the cake. And so
yeah.
When he makes those little pinch plays like he did, a handful of times in the last couple of games, you're ecstatic, actually.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's an underrated signing, especially given the way the personnel has shaken out. As badly as things have gone for their defense as a whole, can you imagine what it would be like without Cody Ceci in there? Would have been playing a lot more inexperienced guys, a lot more minutes in the going so far. So, the one thing I guess we didn't really touch on that's not, I guess, directly related to this game, but sort of the elephant in the room, of course, is the leadership change for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Ron Hextall in as general manager. If you're the new Penguins general manager and this is the first game for your new team that you're seeing in the building, what's your biggest takeaway? What do you feel like this team has, doesn't have, needs going forward?
Well, I think we know, and we've all known what the Penguins have, and that's some talent. What they need a little bit more time. So from that standpoint, that's probably a general manager's friend, really. If he can legitimately say, okay, we need to let this come together a little bit longer, let this cake bake before we know what we've got. And I think the Penguins are still in that rising phase. What they definitely could use is a little bit of muscle somewhere in the lineup. They're still, when they're on the right side of the puck, to use hockey cliche, which I generally despise, when they're on the right side, the defense is really good. When they're not on the right side of the puck, the Penguins' defense is vulnerable. They have to I think, balance their defense a little bit better. I don't know if Pettersson helps or hurts that cause, quite frankly. Certainly, adding Pettersson will be an upgrade over Chad Ruhwedel on the left side. Poor Ruhwedel is doing yeoman's work, but he's not a guy you want playing the left side for a long period of time. I think there needs to be some energy somewhere in the lineup as well. As good as Brandon Tanev is, he's a little bit of a spark plug, but you need a few spark plugs. and I don't think the Penguins quite have that yet. The fourth line is entirely vanilla with Jankowski and O'Connor and Sevier or Lafferty. That's far too vanilla. That's one spot they can find some space for energy, find some space for physicality as well. Just to be, I think the Penguins need that jump start. What's this, 12 games now? And the first period could be on a Betamax loop. It's kind of a lifeless, slow boil every single game. So they need somebody to inject some life on the ice, off the ice, whatever it might be.
Well, that was one of the things I was talking about when you were gone, is that I felt like
doesn't count then.
I felt like Evgeni Malkin really didn't get into this game until he got into it with Matt Martin in the corner, and then he was a different player from then on out. Is there some credence to that? Is he the kind of guy that can ride that emotional streak and also have it go missing for 11 games?
Is there something to that you're asking?
Yeah, I mean, can that get him? Can that be a thing that gets him going? Is if whatever, he's got no crowd, he's got no energy in the building. Can he get mad at an opponent and that be the spark for him?
Yeah, I've wondered how to break down Malkin's deal, because it's not going to change, right? Well, actually, in a couple of weeks it'll change when they play the Islanders, because there'll be 2,000 fans in the stands. Same with Madison Square Garden. There'll be a couple thousand people actually in the stands. Buffalo too, as Governor Cuomo in New York has distributed the vaccines, unlike Pennsylvania, which has squirreled them away for a rainy day. So New York is moving to allow a few fans in the stadium. Those things will help. I can sympathize with Malkin. I don't know if punching an opponent will make him feel better, but he has to, I think, find a way to live in this new reality as long as it exists. And whatever he's done so far really hasn't worked. If getting chippy with Matt Martin is the ticket, then I think the Penguins should do whatever they can to make the opponent upset him or push him to get upset.
I'm envisioning a scene reminiscent of Slapshot here, where did you hear what Malkin said about you? Oh my God, you'll never believe it. And
Malkin, Cizikas has pictures of your wife.
Yeah, right. Whatever it takes.
Wait, that was Major League, right? Major League 2, I think.
Yeah, that was my. But I'm. Something he's got to get going. Maybe the goal tonight will be, that was obviously an emotional high there, scoring that goal at the end. And I thought he, as usual, let's give this caveat, the Pens have played a ton of overtime. I think he's generally looked fair, at least in those 3-on-3 situations, but I thought he was very good tonight in overtime. Has the 3-on-3 gotten less exciting to you? It feels like the coaches are getting their hands on it finally, and it's not just shinny anymore.
I don't know. I think it's still exciting because if your goaltender makes a stop, you're going to get a chance. And as much as the coaches can preach, hang on to the puck, hold for a line change, that really only lasts generally for 30 or 45 seconds. And then the pendulum swings against you. So I still think it's extremely exciting. It's so much better than a ridiculous shootout. The shootouts were cool in the 80s and 90s when I went to the Johnstown Chiefs games and had never seen one before. Those were cool. I didn't care about the outcome. Now that outcomes matter in the National Hockey League, it just seems foolish to decide a game on breakaways.
Yeah, I think they're exciting for the fans, but I don't think it makes a lot of sense for the standings, right? I mean, I think if you're just making it as an exhibition, that's fine. I don't know that it makes a lot of sense for 2 points. I do like the 3-on-3 better, and I think The other thing I talked about with your gun was Casey Smith. Obviously, he's perfect in the shootout situation this year, but I thought he played a pretty good game in this one. In general, I feel like goaltending is one of the major issues that has held this team back. Ron Hextall, of course, knows a thing or two about goaltending, and when he was Philadelphia's general manager, most of his large transactions involved goaltending. He didn't make a lot of splashy moves except for that position. Is the Penguins goaltending tandem good enough? Will they make a move there? I know there's been some talk about Marc-Andre Fleury. I don't know if that's realistic or not,
Well,
but in general.
So some breaking news tonight out of Vegas. I'm obviously I'm doing this. I can't make the phone calls and get the full story, but what I'm hearing, and take it with, this is just, bouncing off the walls right now, that Robin Lehner essentially showed up at the arena tonight in Vegas, said, I can't play, and left. So Fleury is 5-0 with a 1.8 goals against average. Pretty much consider any Marc-Andre Fleury trade talk dead. Absolutely dead. He's going to be the Vegas goalie, and we'll kind of I'll flesh out what actually happened in Vegas, if it was that cut and dried or if there's a lot more to it. But yeah, so
got a tweet here from the Golden Knights that says Lehner is day-to-day with an upper body injury.
Okay.
So that's the update.
Okay. So
yeah, they're not going to trade Marc-Andre Fleury without him healthy. Clearly, in general, do you feel like this is just these two goaltenders playing below their talent level, and given some more time and maybe a little better defensive play in front of them, they will do better? Or should the Penguins be aggressively pursuing an upgraded goaltender?
Paul Zeiss has been kind of banging that drum a little bit too when he has me on, asking me if Jari is good enough. He doesn't think that he is. I am under the impression, and take it for what it's worth, look, Jari's had a bad 7 games or a mediocre 7 games. He's been torched a couple of times, and he's also been pretty solid at other times. He's not on his game like he was to start last season. But what he was last season was not a fluke. It wasn't flash in the pan, hot goaltending. It was legitimate, because it was the talent we've known is there. And he wasn't doing spectacular things. He was doing the right things. I don't necessarily know if I don't know if goalie coach Mike Buckley is the one preaching to him to sag back in the crease. If Buckley's wrong. I think Jari is best when he's a little bit out of control aggressive. He got burned last year on a couple pucks off the back wall that would spring right out in front on the other side, but he was, on top of his crease, taking the shots away from shooters. Even in practice this year, Alan, I noticed this week on the 2-on-1, 3-on-2 rushes they were doing at Cranberry. I almost said South Point. I'm old. Jari's playing so deep into the net, even on the rushes when the guys are at the circles, his shoulders are almost touching the posts. That's exposing far too much net. I don't like it. And if that's what the Penguins are pushing Jari into, they're going to have a bad time. If that's Jari lacking confidence and rhythm right now, then that can be fixed. So do they need a goalie? No. But if things don't turn around here, I would say in about 3 or 4 weeks, talk to me early March, mid-March, and Jari is still like a 900 goalie, then I would say maybe.
Yeah, DeSmith almost to that kind of magical line of mediocrity at 894. Jari at 886. Interestingly enough, goals saved above average, which is a statistic that kind of attempts to add some quantity to the quality to the just the quantity of shots, has the Penguins goaltenders at a roughly net even, as DeSmith 0.51 goals above average and Jarry 0.51 goals below average. Jarry's played one more game, so slightly below, but basically giving up what they ought to if they were average goaltenders, and if they get to that 900 save percentage, that's about what they ought to be. Anything you feel like we've missed from this game or this recent stretch of relative inactivity from the club on the ice, and then a ton of stuff going on off the ice?
I think you've been quite thorough, Alan. I assume whatever we didn't talk about, you talked about individually. I see this team being a pass away, a puck bounce away from becoming their better selves. But until that happens, they're just going to be, that extra pass, or that one pass is just away from the tape. They're just off, and the good teams find it. The bad teams say that in perpetuity, right? The bad teams like, oh, just one more pass or one more bounce, we would have had it. That's what separates the teams. And I think I see enough good things from the Penguins that I'm not ready to sound the alarm, even if they had lost tonight. But 6-5-1 is not a place, one game above 500 is not a place you want to rest.
No, not at all. And their next opportunity to do something about that number will not come against an easy opponent. They've got 2 games against the Caps. Quickly, your thoughts on how they match up with the way they're playing against their neighbors from Washington.
I haven't seen the Capitals since the 3rd and the 4th games this season. What Washington was able to do to the Penguins was essentially out-muscle them. And the Penguins haven't found any muscle in the meantime. So it's going to be the Capitals game. The Penguins become this odd counterpuncher against the Capitals. They attack the Islanders, the Flyers, everybody else, but they become almost a counterpuncher against the Capitals. And I don't know how they do it, but the Penguins have seemed to earn points against Washington. I certainly don't like their chances unless the defense starts putting up some points. And I think that will be the big thing this weekend, because the Capitals can match the Penguins forwards. Can the Penguins defensemen, put a goal or two on the scoreboard, or at least set up a goal or two as the primary assist? And if they can do that, the Penguins, have a pretty good chance. But if it's, if they're not in that headspace, the Capitals' power play is certainly a whole lot better than the Penguins' penalty killing right now.
Yeah, and I don't think you would feel confident about the Penguins' power play against the Capitals' penalty kill either until they make some significant improvements in that area. The Caps 6-3-3. They've got 15 points in this sort of ridiculous East Division. Caps at 15, Isles at 13, Pens at 13 now, and the Rangers at 11. All those teams have played 12 games, and 2 of them are going to go home early this year. That seems absurd as we near the quarter pole of this abbreviated season. Pens back in action against the Caps on Valentine's Day, 3 p.m. on NBC. And then, of course, we'll have all kinds of stuff here on the Pittsburgh Sports Live YouTube channel. We've got a full weekend of basketball coming up. I believe West Virginia has Oklahoma on Saturday. Pitt's got Georgia Tech on Sunday, so there'll be more from us then. Dan, anything else before we wrap this up?
I'm good to go.
All right, for Dan Kingerski. What's that?
I've got work to do.
Got work to do. Let's get back. Of course, all Dan's coverage of Pittsburgh hockey now. Check it out. He's got stuff from the post game tonight coming up right after this. So please, over there on the website, and then all of our Pittsburgh Sports Live and Pittsburgh Sports Now family of websites. Super busy right now as we move through the month of February. And we'll be back with more later this weekend. So for Dan Kingerski, I'm Alan Saunders. Thanks for watching. And